The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at dallasgenealogy.org.
So with that introduction and the basics out of the way, now let's look at the topic for today, which are Hansen's map guides to German parish registers. And this is a way to sort of help locate which parish your ancestors' records are most likely in based on where they lived. And if it's not that particular one, also a quick and easy way to find out what are the neighboring parishes in case they went sort of next door. So why are we interested in parish registers? Well, civil registration in Germany didn't really start nationwide until the mid-1870s. So if you're looking records before that, you really need the parish registers. In Germany, most records are kept at the local level. We're accustomed to going like to the National Archives and finding lots and lots of records there, or at a county archive and finding lots of records. In Germany, you really need to know the location. Now, the parish registers will include records of baptisms, not births, baptisms, marriages, and burials, not deaths. Although often, at least the dates are going to be very close, and in many cases, the location. So you should know before you try to go into these parish registers, because they're all done locally, the name of the hometown where your ancestors were living, and ideally, what religion. In most cases, that would be either Catholic or Lutheran after the Reformation. There are a few other smaller sects that people may have belonged to as well. And even if they did, they may have registered some of the records in the neighborhood Catholic or Lutheran church. So the way to do this, working with Hansen guides, is first figure out the ancestor's religion and hometown, ideally the city or village. If not that, the German state or district. In the Hansen guides, they have master indices at the back of the book. Anytime you're looking in genealogy, you always look at the front of the book, the back of the book before you look at records, the front of the microfilm, the back of the microfilm. And then the individual volume index. Find the name of the parish for which you're searching. And you can also figure out the names of neighboring parishes. The map guides will help you with that. That's why they're map guides. And then with that information, it will tell you if there's anything on family search, although you should search there regardless of where the map guides say there's something or not. Something may have been added after the guide was printed. And then also looking in Ancestry Matricula, which has a lot of the Catholic records for Germany, and then the previously mentioned archive. Hansen's map guides, the dates are around those of 1870. So if the place you're looking for existed then, it most likely will be there. If it's a more recent place that's formed, then it most likely won't be there. He's included some places where only one person lived, but it's actually in the map guide. And the records will be at some neighboring parish, and he'll tell you which parish it is. And again, the guides, since they're map guides, are particularly effective identifying the neighboring parishes. Again, as I mentioned, if your ancestors belong to a minority religion, in some cases, they may have had a nearby church, be it French Reform, German Reform, Jewish synagogue. There's no maps for those locations, but again, it'll give you an idea where they may be. And a number of cases, if Family History Library has microfilms from those locations, it will have links to that. At present, there are 68 map guides. They're published grouped by the German Empire or state. Because Prussia was so large, there are separate volumes for each province. Bavaria, again, very huge. There are separate volumes for each district. And in that case, then there's one volume that is the master index for all of those. And then a few of the smaller duchies and other areas will be grouped in one volume. Lippe, for example, will be in Westphalia 1, which means there's also at least a Westphalia 2. And the most recent guides he's now done, having done all the states, are for particular cities and helping you find, if you know where they exactly live, their address, it will tell you what parish they most likely attended. And you don't have to, frankly, by trying to write down or copy any of this stuff. It's in your handout, which I'll show you in a minute. In addition to Germany with a big G, he's also done a guide for Luxembourg and one for each of the 14 cantons of Switzerland. And there's the call numbers for here in the Dallas library. The guides are books. They are not available online. So you're going to have to, at some point, come to the library. If you come, you'll find lots of great things. A number of our nearby libraries have collections. Dallas, a very extensive one. Arlington, Denton, Fort Worth, Grapevine, Plano. You can use WorldCat to always find the locations nearest to you. One thing when you use WorldCat, and this is one example here, they're listed under a couple different title names. So you have to be a little creative in that, or maybe look by the author's name when you're trying to find it. And it'll tell you what library is nearby to you. You can also buy volumes from Family Roots Publishing. They have hardcover, softcover, and PDF versions. The PDF are about 20 euros. The soft covers are about 30. I actually have my Bavarian one that I purchased, a soft cover here, and I have purchased a couple of the PDFs. As I say, you have two handouts. The links are on the website as well. The first one goes through this procedure I'll be talking about with some resources and record sources, including a video or two that also goes out through how to use these. And then here's the second handout is the only complete list I've found, because I made it myself, of all 68 of the Germans plus the Swiss and the Luxembourg. So you can see all those and the region in which was included in each of those. Here they are in the Dallas Library up on the 8th floor. Get off the elevators, turn left, walk all the way to the windows, then on the bookshelves on your right, all those red books. When I was up working on this a couple of weeks ago, Stephanie, the manager up there, had mentioned to me that they've received some of the more recent ones. And at the time, because they had different code numbers, Library of Congress code numbers, she was getting them moved to this location. And I hadn't had a chance today to go up and look, but I assume all the ones that Dallas has for Germany are now there. Another way to look to see what volume might include your town, particularly if your town has a unique name, is the Family Roots, the company that sells them, on their webpage, and they are now familyrootspublishing.net. Their old site was a .com, but now it's .net. They have a search box, and you can put in the name of the town. This is the case I did. My Meisner great-great-grandparents came from Püsselsheim. I put that in, and it shows me, oh, that'll be in Bavaria 1, the Unterfranken. And there you can see examples of the soft cover, the hardcover, and the image that's the first one on the PDF version. A good complement to Hansen guides are the Myers, Orts, and Vickers Lexikon des Deutsches Reich. And Myers Gazetteer includes all the areas that were part of pre-World War I German Empire. So that's our Germany with the big G again. Over 210,000 places. Indicates where the place is located and gives you an indication of the various jurisdictions. If the location had or where was the civil registry office for those records after the mid-1870s, which you can use in addition to the parish records. If it had Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish synagogues. However, if it doesn't tell you where the local parish was. Hansen guides will. It originally came out in a book form, published again over 100 years ago. And you open the book and you look at it and you have a heart attack. Ah, what is this? There's my Pusselsheim. So you can see that first letter, that's in the Fraktur printing, which is what they used at the time. That's a P. Then we have a U, then two of one kind of S, then E, L, and then another kind of S, and so on. And it used to be that's how you had to find and search for the records and interpret them. And in fact, there was a separate book that came out, and I used to have a presentation that would go through for a whole hour to explain how you use that, interpret all that. But a miracle has occurred. Marion Rainey, starting in 1994, she was at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, decided to start digitizing the entire set, their whole books. There's actually a couple volumes of it, and spent 20 years doing it. We now benefit from her 20 years of hard work, and she has received a couple of awards for it. Brad Coleman, a computer programmer, decided to help out. So now we don't have to worry about all that stuff. We go to www.meyersgas.org, put in the name of the town. You can use wildcards, got some other hints. I'm sort of lucky in my case of Pusselsheim, there is only one Pusselsheim. It does not find, in this case, there is a Russelsheim with an R, which Google keeps trying to send me to. Again, when I'm interested in finding out which volume in Hansen Guide, another way to do it, it shows me the political jurisdictions and tells me Pusselsheim is in the Unterfranken region of Bavaria. And then I can go through, click through to that. There's that funky Fraktur script. We don't have to worry about it anymore. It's all translated, shows me where it is on a map. You can see the detail if you scroll down, and it'll tell you where the civil registration office for the location is located. And in this case, Pusselsheim only has one church. It's a Catholic parish. So the odds are my Meisners living there were Catholic and would have registered baptisms, marriages, and burials at the records there. On Myers Gas, you can go to the ecclesiastical page. Tells you at the top, again, the Catholic parish church is Pusselsheim. If they were Protestant, the closest church was Vestheim by Hosfurt, but it also gives you a little table by distance from Pusselsheim. And you can see there's Pusselsheim and Durfield. Pusselsheim has a parish, Durfield has a church. And then you look close by, there's Obereuerheim and Untereuerheim. In the 1600s, my Meisners lived in Obereuerheim. It has a parish. Untereuerheim has a church. So you say, what's the difference? Well, a parish typically has a resident minister, and he's got the registers. That's the records. If he's also serving a nearby church, then they don't have a resident minister, and he's keeping the records for that nearby church either in the same book as his parish, Pusselsheim in this case, or he may have a separate book for Durfeld or Untereuerheim. So just be aware of that when you're looking for the records. You scroll further down, you eventually get to the Protestant churches, and there's that Vestheim parish, Protestant parish. There's a map on Myers Gas as well. I tried to show you a current Google map, and Google sort of wants people to pay to use their maps. So sometimes it shows a Google map, and sometimes you get something like that. Not to worry, they've also linked it to the older records, so you can toggle the historic map, and on that you can list and click to show Catholic parishes, Protestant parishes, Jewish synagogues. There you can see Durfeld. There is a C for Pusselsheim under the red dot. Up to the left, you can see Untereuerheim, and then Obereuerheim just below it. And then over on the right is Protestant churches in green. There's Vestheim, and we can see a couple others. but right around Pusselsheim was all Catholics. And there's a map scale down at the bottom. This is not terribly large distance. Pusselsheim to Untereuerheim is like probably going from here to Plano. Now there's Hansen's book. So he started in 2000 long before she had released in 2017 the digitized version of Myers-Gaz. He has 70 books planned. He's got 68. He's still working on them. And again, they provide detailed information on the Catholic and Lutheran jurisdictions for locations in German Empire, capital G. It's got Poland, Russia, that part of Russia that was German Empire, Denmark, that part of France, and the like. Again, you have to know the village and town, or at least the state, but really you want the village or the town. If it's a case that has multiple volumes, then at the back of each, there will be a master index. You want to look at the back of all those because each master index was printed at the time that volume was released, and then they may find a couple mistakes or additions in the second of the series of that area, and then maybe the third. And those are always at the back of the book. And then each individual book has a town index for what's in that book. And it'll be listed twice. You'll have a page number for the Protestant parish and one for the Catholic. If you can't find the name, then look for any of the following prefixes that may or may not be added. We saw Obereuerheim, Untereuerheim. When they got on the ship to sail to the United States, they may say where you came from, and somebody would have just wrote Euerheim. So you want to look for Ober and Unter. So always check all those indices. The master indices of the various volumes may not be identical. I'll show you a case in just a moment. And that's because each book was printed separately, and they didn't go back to fix books in the previous printings unless there's a new edition. And you may find a couple cases of towns in the wrong index. So here's a case of Sachsen. There are 3 volumes. So if we look at the table of contents and you look there in the middle on the right, there's the town index to just part 3, but the master index to parts 1, 2, and 3. So on the left, there's that master index, which lists the name of the community and then tells you in which volume, which part you would find it. Abendroad, it may be more than one Abendroad. It shows parts 1 and part 2. Then on the right is example at the back of Sachsen 3, the town index for the page numbers of the towns that are in that particular book. Here's that comparison between the master index of Sachsen 1 and the master index of Sachsen 3. And you can see there's a couple changes, a change in spelling of the one name and the addition of 2 others that were not included in the master index of the first one. Okay, so again, I'm looking for Pusselsheim in the Unterfranken of Bavaria. So Bavaria, as I mentioned, has a separate book. It's so big of a master index. There's Pusselsheim. Again, it tells me it's in the Unterfranken book. The Lutheran parishes, I should go and look on page 44 of Unterfranken, and the Catholic page 102. So there's the book of Bavaria 1. There's the table of contents. The town index is at the back of the book. I go through and find there's Pusselsheim, and again shows Lutheran is page 44, Catholic page 102. So here we are on page 100 and 101. This is the presentation for each one. On the left, you have the map. It is Hansen's map guides. On the right, at the top, is a parish key to that map. And then below are the town keys that tell you to which parish key a town belongs. Since this is particularly large, we have to turn and go to that page 102. And there's Pusselsheim, which tells me parish key 30. There's parish key 30, which is Pusselsheim, and we see it there on the map up on the edge. Okay. Genealogy is always about time and place. You have to be particularly careful of places that are on the border of something. First, though, I should go back and point after Pusselsheim and the dot, 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 there are no numbers to point to a reference of a microfilm number in the family history library. But because that book was published some years ago, they may have got some new records. So always check the family search catalog for that location. So I looked for Pusselsheim, still nothing. Okay, there we are at the boundary, the map zoomed in. There's Pusselsheim. Parish 31 is at Fallsmühle. So we can see it's on the boundary, and to the west is the Bezirksamt of Schweinfurt, and to the east is the Bezirksamt of Hausfurt. So if my ancestors didn't go to church in Pusselsheim, which way did they go? Well, this is where the map guides help. You can go look at the part of the Unterfranken book for these Bezirksamts and look at those maps, and you can sort of fit together like a picture puzzle. So there's that Obereuerheim, where 200 years before the Meisners were. It was only 2 miles away. You could walk there in half an hour, but it's in a different district. So if you couldn't find them in Pusselsheim, that might be one place to go look. And the same thing in Hausfurt, and we saw that was where the Protestant church was. That's over in the other neighboring Bezirksamt. So that's where these map guides help you. You can look around and see, maybe they went to Donnersdorf or down to Traustadt. So if you can't find them in that, the one you think they should be in, this gives you a good way to tell you what the neighbors are. Okay, same sort of thing we can do with the Lutheran parishes. That told us page 44. This is pages 42, 43. We turn the page. There's Pusselsheim, which is parish key 6. There's that Vestheim by Hausfurt. And we see it's also up on that border with the other two Bezirksamts. So if for whatever reason they didn't go there, you could look at the Protestant churches in the neighbors. Okay, so if you don't find anything there in the family history library, then if they're Catholic, I look at matricula.com. It has, I think I counted about 7 of the 24 parish dioceses in Germany in there. It's up to each bishop to decide if they want their records in or not. Pusselsheim is in Würzburg. That bishop has not given permission to include them on matricula. And you can look real quick. There's the map from matricula's page. Shows you the number of parishes in each location. The star is Pusselsheim, and there's that big empty void. Nothing for matricula. Well, someday. You can look at the Catholic archive. And yeah, I know the parish is Würzburg, so I looked out on the lower left and notice the Würzburg records and links are not in green. The ones in green, like Dresden-Meißen, means there are links on matricula. A little bit, we'll also talk at Freiburg. You look at Freiburg. Freiburg records and links are not in green. They're not on matricula. That's the Catholic records. Matricula has a free site. So then we have to go to the archive of the diocese. So here's their website. You can find in some cases, like that Meissen diocese, on their archive website, they have links to the records. So here I am at Würzburg, and I look at family research. Oops, excuse me. Hang on there, going the wrong direction. It tells me since 2012, 6,600 official books from 550 parishes are available digitally. Because you see on the Bavarian Facebook group, everybody says, when are they going to digitize the records? Well, they are all digitized. They're just not on matricula. And we can look at the list and see, yep, Pusselsheim is there. They got it. You always in Germany have to pay attention to the personal protection periods. They're the national ones, which limit at 100 years and a little bit less for weddings and deaths. However, for the archive of the diocese, baptisms, you can only find the ones that are more than 120 years ago, weddings and death in this archive after 100 years. And different German archives have different time periods. Jim Beidler, who I took a class with, we were fellow students, has a friend in Germany who's put together a whole list, every archive and what their blackout periods are. So why aren't they online? Well, digital matriculation research for the reading room is subject to a fee to the diocese for private research. They're charging money. They don't want to lose the cash cow. So what about other denominations? We saw the Catholic and the Protestants. Again, on the table of contents, we can see the other churches. We can see in the Unterfranken, this is the whole region, there are French Reformed records. There's records for High German, German Reformed, and Jewish. And notice all these have numbers. Those are the microfilm numbers of the first of what may be more than one microfilm that were in the family history library at the time the book was published. So I can go look there, and this is Braunschweig, and find, in fact, yes, there are 2 microfilms. There's that first number, unless there's a second one, and it has baptisms, marriages, and deaths, and then some confirmations for as early as 1708 for some of the records up to 1811. This is for the Protestant church. What about the High German Reformed in Braunschweig? And again, we can see there they have 7 microfilms. If we look at this case, notice there's no magnifying glass next to the formats. There's just the camera, which says I can look at the images remotely on the Family Search Library's website, but no index. But look, that first microfilm is an index for baptisms, marriages, deaths, and confirmations, 1704 to 1875. And then starting on the second one, after some more indices, there is a start of the records. So I can go through and look for, here's one of the records. This is for Johann Caspar Bacchi, who was a military drummer. Notice usually after the name, they always indicate the profession, because that shows where you fit in German society. This indexer had very nice handwriting. And if you're all familiar with the German handwriting script, you can see the next line is his Ehefrau, his wife, is Sophie, and then the GEB, geboren, her maiden name, Becker. Lots of good information. And then the 3 children, Kinder, first of which was Johanna Henrietta Suzanne, and her record, Cita, is page 762. So I can go to page 762. The next to last record on the page is for her. So we can sort of look at that. And if you look at the names, notice the names are written in the Roman script. Johann Henrietta Suzanne. You can sort of read that out. And you can see Johann Caspar Bacchi. And then they go into the German script for his profession, some of the other information. Why is she Johanna Henrietta Suzanne? Here we have the baptismal sponsors, the godparents, Johann, Engel, Wilhelm, Johanna, Henrietta, Johanna Henrietta, and Susanna. So often in Germany, you got your names from your baptismal sponsors, who are most likely relatives or close friends of the parents. Here's the second child, Maria Christina Conradina. It's Conrad with an I-N-A, that's the feminine suffix. If you see that on surnames, you sort of drop that off. She wasn't listed as Beckerin, which may be the case sometimes. She was on page 769. We're talking now 1753. And there we go through, and we see the sponsors, Gaylord, Conrad, Christina, and Maria. So why is she Maria Christina? And his middle name was Conrad. Well, you can't have a girl Conrad, but you can have a girl Conradina. And then in 756, they have a son, Christian Elias Peter. You can see the indexer did this separately, sometimes after the fact, with very nice writing. And then the parish priest or his secretary had the handwriting for the actual records. Okay, earlier this week, I got a question from one of our special interest group's members talking about one of her German ancestors who was a member of the Freiberger family. They knew he was born in 1743 in Freiberg in Breisgau, Baden-Württemberg, Germany. Again, time and place. And they were asking, okay, I looked at your notes. I haven't heard your presentation yet. How do I find them? I couldn't quite figure it out. And I said, okay, I can do that. So we go to Myers Gazetteer. We look for Freiberg. Let me back up for a second. And notice the very last word, not in the city of Freiberg, and they're spelled B-E-R-G. So one of the things you want to pay attention to is it Berg the mountain, Berg, B-E-R-G the mountain, B-U-R-G the town. It is in fact Freiberg with the U. And it helped that it was in Breisgau, because now we see Myers Gazetteer gives us a couple options, but that one from Breisgau. And notice its location is Freiberg, Baden. Well, as we'll see in a bit, Freiberg was an independent city. It didn't belong to anybody. It's in Baden. So that tells us what book we want to look in. And if we go through the rest of Myers Gazetteer, we don't even have to translate. We can see 10 Catholic churches, 3 Protestant churches, 1 synagogue, and 3 other religions. And it also tells us population at the time Myers was printed was 83,000, and it even breaks it down, 57,000 Catholics, 23,000 Protestants, and 1,300 Jewish residents. Those are interesting to see. You always want to learn more about the town in addition to just looking at the records. So I can look at this case on CompGen and the GOV, the Historical Gazetteer. I asked my browser to translate to English, and it looks at Freiberg, and it says, well, there's even a place in Western US called Freiberg, and there's 121 Freibergs in Europe. Great, how am I going to find the one I want? Well, if I go down the page a little, I can filter my results, and that Breisgau helps me with that. Notice the first hits that come up all have the little cross. That's a symbol that they are churches. If I scroll down a bit, I get the Freiberg in Breisgau as the urban county, has its zip code. If I was going to write a letter, although nowadays you can do a lot in social media, I click on that. It gives me the basic information about the town. Shows me in 1890, the population was about 49,000. The web page for the site, about the place in the net, and also if I want to connect with other people. If I scroll down on the page, I get to what they call the superordinate objects. These are the political jurisdictions to which it belonged at different times. So at the bottom, we have the Stadtkreis Freiberg im Breisgau. We're interested in 1745, remember. We look over, it starts 1939, the district land commissioners area. But we look up a little, as early as 1864, they were in Freistaat Baden, which in 1871 then became part of the German Reich. So again, it's pointing us to Baden as the place. As I showed earlier and mentioned again in your first of the 2 handouts, the bottom of the second page, there's a link to that search page on family roots. I put in Freiberg. There must be people with names in Michigan and Illinois that those books are, they also are there. But it's telling me again, the Grand Duchy of Baden is the book. Another way to look is go to the actual book itself, and tells me in this case there's a second edition they did in 2008 where they did a number of updates. Again, scroll down. Here's all the different places, and you scroll down to the F's into Freiburg. So Baden is where I want to be. Again, we also look in Wikipedia, learn a lot more about it, time and place. Look where Freiburg is, right next to France, 1745. 1800s, Napoleon comes marching across. What's one of the first places that gets conquered? Which one of the first places that may have records in French or even in Paris for a little while? Freiburg. It talks about how it became an independent state. They didn't like the lord of the manor who had a castle on a hill. Somehow they got a hold of a catapult and a bunch of big stones and knocked his castle down and eventually bought their right to be a free state. So lots of history there. Terrible things happened with the Nazis, of course, and those descendants of those 1,300 Jewish people. So now, if I'm looking Protestants, and that's my hint, I look an archion, and I can go through, and I want to look in Freiburg, years 1700 to 1750. I get 3 hits. Okay, and these look promising. Look at that bottom book in particular, Church Book 1696 to 1757. But notice there's a difference between the first 2 and the last one. I didn't first notice that. Don't make my mistakes. That last one is in the Church Archive of Hanover, not Baden, even though they had a lot of pages of great records for that period. Okay, the other 2 Mischbooks are combination books. They have births, baptisms, confirmations, marriages all in one. Both cover that period of 1745. Neither has any records of the individual we're looking for, but notice they come from the Church Archive of Karlsruhe, which is another city in Baden. Still on Archeon, I'm going to say, okay, let me look at the archive and see what's on Archeon. Put in Freiburg and starts to list out some of the churches, even a military church. And you can go through there. I found the Hausloch, the second to last one, the only thing that had any kind of records from the 1700s. And that was the western part of the town. It was actually separate for a while and was annexed. So I scroll down this page on archiving a bit and says, well, if it's not here, maybe go look at the actual church archive. So I go there. It says, here's a finding aid for all the books we got. I look at that, and it's Kirchen and Familienbücher sowie Standesbücher. Huh? Well, I go to my favorite translator, Diepel. Tells me that's church and family registers and Israelite, which means Jewish registers. Again, we saw it had a Jewish population. I scroll down through all the pages to find the F's and Freiburg. Starts on page 198, ends on page 2005. The earliest records are those ones at the very beginning. The state parish, city parish, 1807, nothing from 1745. Sorry. So not even at the archive of the diocese. So how would I look again in the book? I know it's the Baden book I want. I go through, I look for Freiburg. Ian tells me there's a page number 39. It's parish key 3. This is for the Protestant churches. And there is Freiburg. We can see next to it has Hausloch. Notice there's some not assigned regions. Well, if you read about Freiburg, it's the gateway to the Black Forest. So that not assigned area is the Black Forest, and there aren't any parishes there. I look and see there is a number for a microfilm at the Family History Library. So I go there, and it does show me Taufen, 1807 to 1885, what we saw at the Diocesan Archive. And you can scroll down. These are all the rest. That number is just the first of the many numbers they may have. Some of them we see are indexed. That one is online with the camera. Others, you just have the index. These are for the Protestant records. If I look at the Catholic records, that's Parish 14. It actually gives me 3 starting places. Well, I guess it isn't all Black Forest. The Catholics are over there in the east. There's no Protestants over there. So not a very large Protestant population, mainly in the urban area. And we can see the microfilm number. So we go there and we see, the dreaded key over the camera with the index, the magnifying glass. And again, that tells us to access these, I have to go to a Family Search Center or a Family Search affiliate library. Well, Dallas Library is the affiliate library. You can come here, get on the computers up on the 8th floor, and look at those microfilms, those records. But you have to come to the library or your local family history center. And it even says they have an index. Let me back up for a second. We see they have one there that starts baptism 1572 and 1603. It's under a title of Archdiocese of Freiburg 1678. These dates are always sort of approximate, maybe the first record, maybe not. We saw there's some 1500s, 1678. So careful with the dates in titles of records. Go ahead and look. Here's a case. We're looking for a Johann Ludwig Freiberger. Here's a marriage record for a Martin Ludwig Freiberger. And notice on this website, they look at some of the variant spellings. Some sites do, some sites don't. Always look at your results. But this is a marriage record 1620 from places that started in the title sometimes after that. So we can at least look there and see the information. This Martin Ludwig married a Margarita, a loner. But to see the image, again, you have to go to a family history center or an affiliate library. There are other churches in Baden, quite a number of them, with lots and lots of microfilm records. Look at all these Jewish records from Baden area. Now, 2 other quick little short things that came up on the Facebook site, Landshut. Somebody said, I'm looking in Regensburg Diocese archives, and it only shows me one parish, St. Nicola. But Myers Gazetteer says there's 11. Doesn't tell me the name's 11, just tells me there's 11. What happened? Did they get lost in the war? Or they're somewhere else? This is give you another reason why you want to be on Facebook pages. Somebody respond and say, guess what? 2 dioceses. Landshut is right there on the river. If you're on the upper left, that side of the river, you're in the Diocese of Regensburg, and the one parish is St. Nicola. But if you're on the other side of the river, still in Landshut, you're now in the Diocese of Munich, and there are a number of churches. The ones surviving from those 11, there were a couple others. Are Ursuline Academy, the Nazis got rid of. There was another one that was a monastery that in 1910 there were 11, now there's fewer, but they're in the diocese. And as I point out, not only are these records, Catholic records, they are on matricula, but if I go to the diocese archive site, I can link to them there as well. So the different dioceses, different rules. And this is a case, again, when you're on a border, always look across the border for records as well. In this case, the river split the town, and Regensburg is on one side of the river, and you belong to another diocese. We have a case here now for the Catholic diocese. We have Dallas and Fort Worth, and what if you're on the border? In our case, when I was growing up, the parish we belonged to, my mother really didn't like our parish priest. So we went down to the town to a separate church to go to church. So we were already born and baptized, but I got confirmed through my local parish, although I'm remembering now, yeah, the bishop did come there. So my confirmation record would be in my home parish. Okay, I mentioned the most recent volumes are city guides. So they're a little bit different from the ones that are the large states or provinces. This particular one covers Hanover and Magdeburg. Again, it says starting with a parish list, passenger list, or naturalization record. This can help. It can help, again, find the neighbors, and has street maps as well as those links to the microfilm number. So if I look at the table of contents for Hanover, all the books give you a nice historical background at the beginning. In this case, you'll be looking and using city directories to try to find the address of, if not your ancestor, maybe one of the descendants. Then it has the Lutheran parishes and then the Catholic parishes with two different ways to get to them. The street index by street. So if you know what street they lived on, it will tell you to which parish, Lutheran or Catholic, they were assigned. If you're looking at the parishes, it also has a list of parishes with the streets that belong to that parish. So if you know the name of the street, or you know the name of the parish, and you may well use the C directory to find the address, that's one way to do it. The same is true for Magdeburg. That's also in the book. At the bottom, you can see in both cases there are minority religions and also links to some other genealogical resources. So again, a good reason to come to the library to put your hands on one or more of these Hansen guides and get the information that they have published. So again, the way you want to do it is you need to know the ancestor's religion and hometown. If it's a map guide that has more than one volume, we saw like for Saxon had 3, look first in the master index at the back of each of the volumes. It'll tell you which volume to look in, then look at the list for the volume at the back of that volume. It'll tell you the page numbers for Catholic and Lutheran, or you look at the others if needed. Then you can see which parish you're assigned to. You can look at the maps to figure out what the neighbors are. If at least the time the book was published, it'll give you a link to a microfilm on the family search, but always go to family search and search that location regardless. And then you can also be looking on ancestry. I thought I fixed all my typos. Matricula. Well, you don't want something to be perfect. That makes the gods angry. And then Archon. Again, Archon, you can search for the parish. You just can't see the actual record unless you buy the subscription. But you don't buy the subscription until you know they have the parish you're interested in. So that's my presentation. What questions might you folks have? Okay, we've got a couple here that were up on already on the chat. Okay, looking Württemberg, early 1750s, came with about 400 others on a ship to Charleston, South Carolina from Rotterdam. So you want to figure out where did they come from? Were those others looking for the parish records? They might be Lutherans. Was there a group of them that all came together? Did part of the parish pick up and move and establish one there? Again, I found my Pusselsheim by looking at the American church records of, because it was a German church, when they brought the kids in to get baptized, the priest said, well, the parents, where are you from? And it took the last of all the kids. They first said, well, we're from Germany. Well, we're from Bavaria. And finally, the very last child, they said, oh, we're from Pusselsheim. And that's the only record I have of that little girl. And baptized in the 1860s and doesn't show up in the 1870 census. So that would be the first place. Search all the American records you can before you try to go across the pond. Otherwise, were they traveling as a group? And then can you figure out from the group, sailing from Rotterdam, I've never worked with their passenger list. Are there departure records in Rotterdam? And shaking your head, no. In some cases there are that may have listed where did you come from when you got on the ship, because those passenger lists were compiled when they got on the ship, not when they got off. So that's a couple places to sort of look. Then also look at death notices. yeah, so-and-so came here from wherever. And even that one presentation we saw coming up on the German newspapers might be one you want to attend to get some ideas to look that way.
Maybe they're just announcements of meetings coming up.
Okay, a couple other meetings from Dorothy. Thank you. On the 1st of December, German Advent, Christmas, New Year's traditions and superstitions by the EGS German Interest Group. We'll put this on our Facebook page. Thank you, Dorothy. And then January 5th, before our next meeting, the best websites for German genealogy by Dan Junglas, also by the same group. And like I say, we'll put those up on our Facebook site, particularly as we get a little closer to the dates. So,
Yeah, I don't see any questions.
okay, anybody else have any other questions?
Where would I look for Rotterdam departure?
Where would you look for Rotterdam departure records? The first place to probably go look again would be on CompGen. And they have quite a lot of records there. Also, the Family Search Wiki. That'd be the first place I'd go to, under Rotterdam. And again, you want to learn all you can about Rotterdam and the ships and what they might have had as records. 1700s were pretty early. Again, it wasn't until 1820 that the United States required ships to have passenger lists. But for example, the one guy we were looking for Freiburg, he landed in Philadelphia. The same would be true when they came in to South Carolina. That was a British colony. And you were the Germans. Well, in the case of Philadelphia, at least, they marched them right to the courthouse and said, you have to take an oath of allegiance to the king. And you also have to say, you don't have any authority granted to the Pope. You want to be our Church of England. And in the case of at least Philadelphia, I know, I'm not familiar with South Carolina, the actual signatures have been recorded and are available freely online. So again, I would look at the wiki on Family Search for Rotterdam and also wherever they came in on South Carolina to see what might be there in terms of arrival records, because they would have had to swear oath of allegiance to the British king since they were Germans now coming into a British colony in the 1740s.
Congratulations and thank you.
Okay, appreciate all your messages. You have our email address here on the last slide. It's also on the website. Both Ann and I will get the messages. So if you think of questions later, be sure to let me know. Mention you've seen the presentation, so I don't have to tell you again what I already told you. And again, this has been recorded. Have we stopped the recording yet?
I'm going to do it right now.
We're stopping the recording. And the record.
This has been a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your fees have been supporting these and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining now. Go to dallasgenealogy.org and click on the membership tab.